What's up, everybody, and welcome to Random SEC. And today we are going to be breaking down the SEC Saturday of College Hoops. It was a wild one. Let's just go ahead and get right into it, starting off the day with a star-studded matchup in Georgia and Auburn. The number 23 ranked Bulldogs took on the Auburn Tigers, and it was an absolute crazy matchup. Game of the year, in fact, I would say. It has to be put up there already. Once again, this is the first week of college hoops in conference play for the SEC. And it did not disappoint. Let's be quite frank here. As a whole, the conference is probably not as good as it was last year, but last year was historic. The conference is still insane, and as we saw today, it's going to be any given game that you can lose, no matter how good you are, no matter how bad you are. Just an absolute thrilling conference this year. So, Mississippi State and Georgia, Auburn and Georgia, the number 23 ranked Bulldogs, proved they were legit. Pulling off what most would consider an upset against the Auburn Tigers. Auburn drops to 9-4, and the Bulldogs keep rolling. Georgia is for real. I just put the graphics up. Jeremiah Wilkerson had a fantastic game, and so did Somto Real. Both guys absolutely balled out. I think Wilkerson, he ended up with 31 points, and this was a game that just went back and forth. And you're entering the end of the second half, and it feels like Georgia's in control. Auburn makes a late push. At one point, there was 6 seconds left in regulation, and I think the game's over because Georgia has a 4-point lead. Auburn erases that, and they get the infamous free throw, bank off bucket. Kevin Overton that has made that, and it was just an absolutely fun and ruckus atmosphere in Athens, Georgia. Those fans, they're ready for basketball. This is a Georgia team that is in a Georgia fan base just let down by football, but rebounded extremely well and had a packed crowd, and was just an absolutely fun matchup all around. It's a rivalry, and a great way to be the first game of conference play. I mean, that is just hopefully the epitome of what the SEC will entail throughout all of this college basketball season. Let me go ahead and show you this buzzer beater because I'm just going to tell you right now, it was absolutely insane. I don't. It's got to be one of the best ever that I've seen. And it's a shame for Auburn that it didn't end up being what led to a win, but it still was quite insane. So let's play the clip. You cannot put it up any better, and Auburn go crazy as they should. That's what it's all about, though, and it's quite a shame that this didn't end up, leading to an Auburn win. But that's how the game of college basketball goes. So as you can see, it went to overtime, and in overtime, Georgia was the one to prevail with the W. Rough start. I'm not going to lie to you. Rough start for Auburn for conference play. This is a team that, it felt like they needed to get a win under their belt. They've struggled, but they've shown some flashes that they could be good. Obviously, new head coach Stephen Pearl, son of Bruce Pearl, taking over this year, and it's been up and down to say the least. But I do think this Auburn team, I think they can get it together. At the end of the day, though, this is a little bit of a disappointing loss. Georgia's good. They're number 23 ranked, but it kind of felt like they're a team that it's ranked high, but maybe I don't know, kind of ate up on smaller opponents, easier opponents. but they proved they were legit. I'm not gonna lie to you. They proved otherwise, but I really felt like for Auburn that this was the game. You got to get this one. But there's a lot of season left, guys, and I will keep pointing back to it. But Arkansas last year started off the season 1-5 in SEC play. But they consistently were decent in the net rankings, and then they made a late push at the end of conference play at the end of the season, and then found themselves in March Madness and just wreaked havoc. So that's really what it's all about. Auburn 9-5 on the year, and Georgia 13-1. And if you would have told Georgia fans that a couple of years ago, they would be quite shocked. I'm quite frank with you. The coaching job that Mike White has done for the Bulldogs has been nothing short of insane. Coming from Florida, he didn't meet expectations there. Comes to Georgia, the rival of Florida, and has exceeded expectations here. Coming off, I don't think people remember the Tom Crean era of Georgia, and that was just absolutely abysmal. And he's erased that super quickly. Made the tournament last year, and I think John Rothstein said it. It's come from a thing like where a back-to-back tournament season at Georgia is unheard of, and now it feels like it's going to be the standard. This Georgia team is definitely on the right track to make the tournament, and that's really all you got to say for them. But Auburn, it's hurts a little bit. Every great competition they played, they've kind of gotten rocked. You look at Purdue, you look at Arizona. And they have some good marquee wins. But this is one, down to the wire. You get that buzzer beater. It feels like it's all going your way. And just at the end, you don't get it done. And that's going to be a thing Auburn fans need to mesh. They need to get Todd Pettiford going more. And I think Todd Pettiford didn't even start today. And, Stephen Pearl was like, he was like, he's got to prove to me that I have to start him. And he hasn't proven that so far. And this is a guy we thought was going to be a breakout player. He could have went to the draft last year. He didn't. He stayed at Auburn. Still a lot of season left. I'll say it again and again. Auburn season is far from over. I still think they find a way to make it to the tournament, but not a good loss today and a great win for Georgia. That being said, let's go ahead and move on. We started off today with a great win. With a great game in Auburn and Georgia, and another game that was a little bit overshadowed, but we'll still talk about it. Vanderbilt and South Carolina. Vanderbilt kind of cruises this game, 83-71. Look, South Carolina battled. Being the number 11 ranked team that Vanderbilt is, I'd say, this looks like a pretty decent fight from South Carolina, considering everything. But this isn't, your typical 11th ranked team. I don't think Vanderbilt's quite to the caliber of most top 10 teams would be, but they're still good and they're undefeated and taking nothing away from a pretty, let's be honest, dominant win against South Carolina. And Coach Calipari said it today. It's every game in the SEC is going to be tough, and every game in the SEC, every win you can get in the SEC is a great win. Vanderbilt did that today. They're number 11th ranked. They're undefeated. They have marquee wins. I'm not going to go out here and say that Vanderbilt are going to be world beaters, are going to be instant national championships, but I just want you to take a step back and think about Vanderbilt as a university, as an athletic department, where they have been and where they are right now is just simply insane. Undefeated in basketball, and they have this kind of a narrative around them that they don't play tough competition. And you can say that, and it's kind of true, but then you look at their record, and they've played some decent power opponents, and they've handled them. This is a Vanderbilt team that I don't want to say is the best in the SEC. I ranked them number 3, but they're doing everything you can ask them to do. They're undefeated, 14-0, 11th ranked, and they just keep rolling. So we'll see as SEC play goes on how long they can keep this going. They have Alabama next, which is a huge test for the Commodores. If they can pull that one off, they're going to turn some major heads, and they're going to be looking at a top seed in the NCAA tournament. That being said, great win for Vanderbilt and South Carolina. It's just kind of par for the course. This is what we've seen all year from the Gamecocks, and I just don't feel like I'm going to see anything change. 9-5 on the year, and Auburn's also 9-5, and just them together, they just feel like two totally different spectrums. Um, I'm interested to hear from South Carolina fans where you think Lamont Paris goes. And it felt like it was a make or break year for him, and it feels like he's not capitalizing on that. And they even got some decent talent. So I'm interested to see what South Carolina fans think of that. I'd say this has been a disappointing year, to say the least, for South Carolina. But it's not over. We got a lot of season left, guys. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. There's going to be some overreactions here. I mean, it's week 1 of conference play. It's game 1 of conference play. There's a whole lot to unpack and to go throughout the season. Teams can change. Teams can mesh more. Teams can get worse. So none of these teams in the SEC right now are completely over. But South Carolina's one that, it feels like it's a little bit, you got to get things going soon or it's over. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about that game. That game wasn't, one of the marquee matchups. Vanderbilt rolls on. That's really all you got to say about that game. So we can go ahead and move on to the 2:00 slate. Or I guess there's one more 11 o'clock, and that was Kentucky, Alabama. This is a game, we looked at it and we were like, this has potential to be a great game. Kentucky obviously been struggling this year under Mark Pope, year 2. Alabama has not. They have some losses on the year, but they've been, I think, almost unanimously agreed the best team in the SEC. They have a lot of marquee wins. They're 11-3, number 14 ranked, and they showed that today. Just a dominant win against Kentucky, 89-74. And it's a head scratcher for Kentucky fans. You felt like that St. John's win, the Indiana win, you're on the right track. We getting Jaden Quintus back. Everyone's fully healthy for this game. Going on the road, it's tough. But, you want to start off conference play good, and then you're down by 20 at halftime. It doesn't feel like you're ever in it. Yeah, they made some runs in the second half, but at the end of the day, they just got dominated in every sense of the game. And I know Kentucky fans how they feel about Mark Pope. The leash is just getting shorter, is all I'm going to say. I think that's what I tweeted out after this game. The leash for Kentucky's season and for Mark Pope is getting shorter. Every time you just get dominated by this. Like if this is a 1-score game, even the fans are not as hostile, and this game for Kentucky really showed a lot. But as much as SEC basketball tends to be centered around Kentucky, I think this is about Alabama and how good they truly are and can be this season. And it kind of felt like this was going to be I don't want to say it, but a down year for Alabama, maybe. They lost a lot of production last year. They lost Marcus Sears. They lost Grant Nelson. But man, oh man, LeBaron Philon has stepped up. And today, Aiden Holloway stepped up majorly for the Tide. 25 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and a plus 22 plus minus, all in only 30 minutes. As they call him, the Biz is absolutely balling. Aiden Holloway has been fantastic this season, but especially this game. And if you can get this version of Aiden Holloway throughout conference play, throughout the tournament eventually, and obviously have LeBaron Philon balling and other guys, I mean, this Alabama team is going to be even more dangerous than they already are. Just an absolute, I don't know how to put this, just an absolute dominant performance, but it was a dominant performance in the way that Kentucky showed flashes where they looked like they were going to come back, and then Alabama would hit one of those dagger threes or drive into lane and get to, and would just silence them. And that's the type of team Nate Oates has put together this year. And here's the way to say it: it's a killer team. You get in there and you're getting close in the game, and they just kill that and silence it. And just a good year for Alabama so far, and I see it continuing. Obviously, they have Vanderbilt next. That'll be a matchup for them that should be interesting. A number 11 ranked Vanderbilt, but Alabama has lived up to the hype so far, and I cannot stress to you enough the job Nate Oates has done here at Alabama. Kind of just one point of this game, and I was like, it feels like Nate Oates has been there forever. He's been there for like 5 years, and I realized, for him, Alabama basketball was just a joke. It wasn't great. I mean, it's made the tournament every now and then, but now it's a expectation to make the tournament, an expectation to get to the Sweet 16. You're trying to get to the Final Four every year, and it just feels like another one of those years for Alabama basketball, man. That offense is great. That defense is good. I mean, this is just another year for Alabama basketball that you're like, wow, this seems great. But let's go ahead and move on from that game. A great game. Um, Alabama gets it, and Kentucky continues to struggle. Um, Moving on to the 2 o'clock slate, and this was probably your game of the day. The game everyone was, kind of hyped for going into the weekend. And it was number 18 Arkansas taking on the number 19 Tennessee Volunteers. It was a great game throughout. Arkansas ends up getting the W 86-75, and they improve on the season to 11-3, and Tennessee falls to 10-4. These two teams, though, watching this game, are great. Okay, I'm going to keep it a buck. These two teams are really good, and these two teams are going to be battling it out all year and throughout March, and they're going to be at the top of the SEC. This it's the exact kind of thing you wanted. It was a great game. Darius Acup absolutely balled out. This is the freshman from Arkansas. Malik Thomas also had a great game. Those two guys, we were looking at them earlier in the season. We were like, wow, they were really good. But now they're elite. I mean, I don't know a freshman I'd rather have on my team than Darius Acuff. And that's saying a lot with this freshman class. Darius Acuff absolutely balled out, and Arkansas is just continues to roll. And this is year two Cal, and it's just a vintage Calipari team, and it really feels like it's coming together. And there's still so much more on the table. I feel like there's a lot of potential with Arkansas as well. Um, but I want to just say, I have this clip of the crowd at Bud Walton Arena was elite. No vintage Bud Walton Arena atmosphere as it should be. It kind of felt like last year and earlier this year we kind of lost that a little bit in the Cal era, and whether it was Musk being the guy who got everything going, or just tickets too expensive. But this was a vintage Bud Walton Arena. This was absolutely electric from start to finish, and this was I think Jimmy Dykes said it on the cast. There's not a place better than this. Whether it's the best or not, I don't know, but there's not a place better than that when it's absolutely rocking like it was today. And it definitely affected Tennessee. A stat for them that was very bad was free throws, and I think the crowd had a lot to do with that. They were like 50% on free throws. That's inexcusable. The storyline for Tennessee, though, is Nate Ament. The guy has been nothing short of a disappointment. He's struggling immensely. That being said, though, I don't want you to give up hope. I think Nate Ament can still be an elite player in this conference, and I do think he will find his way this year. Whether I think he will be a lottery pick, I don't think so. I mean, it's really just not looking like that's what's going to happen. But he's a great player, and I think you can see flashes of the talent that he has. And I think he will get it together at least a little more than he has. But today was absolutely embarrassing for him. It's kind of a game. You felt like, all right, this is the time for Nate Ament to show up and show out, and he just didn't. He was kind of a liability on the court. Jacob Gillespie was good for Tennessee. But yeah, I feel like that's the storyline for Tennessee. You got to get Nate Ament going if this team's really going to take the step to be elite. They're good right now, but to be elite, they're going to need Nate Ament to be going. Arkansas, they have Darius Acuff and Billy Thomas going, Trevor Brazile going. Like I've said all year for Arkansas, it's going to be as far as Trevor Brazile takes them. Okay, he's been way more consistent than he usually is this year. He could be the best player in college basketball. Yeah, I said it, if he's playing at his best. But the struggle with him is all mentally, and I think we've seen that time and time again. He had a good game today, but he's had a couple, times this year where he's been elite. And if he can start getting that, especially towards the end of the season, going into March, if he can start getting that elite play, going, I don't know a team that can beat Arkansas. And if they have Darius Safecuff continuing to ball, Malik Thomas continuing to ball, guys like DJ Wagner stepping up, Carter Knox stepping up, he stepped up today, big. That's what Arkansas needed. Malik Ewan. I mean, this team, they have depth and they're looking very, very good. And I don't think they've even scratched the surface of the potential that they can reach. This Arkansas team is definitely a natty contender. I'd say them and Alabama are your two teams to absolutely watch out for in March. That can absolutely disrupt a lot of things and a lot of the precedents that have been being set this season in college basketball. These two teams, especially Arkansas, if they can get it together, if they can get meshed completely, they can be elite. Today, they played great. I still think there was a lot left on the table, though. I think they could have definitely played better. But, like I said, and I think Cal's saying it too, they're still figuring it out. It's very early in the season, but a great way to start off conference play for the Hawks. Looking back at last year, they started off at home against Tennessee, I believe, and I think it was Tennessee. Same thing as this year, and they just got absolutely bullied, and I think it was like near a 30 or 40 point loss. So just tells you where Arkansas is at and the Cal rebuild that he's done since last year. That's really all I have for this game. I expect Arkansas to jump in the rankings. I expect Tennessee to stay kind of where they are. And let me make it clear, Tennessee's still a great team, and they still have a lot on the table. If they can just get a Native going and just mesh a little bit more on offense and kill the turnovers a little bit, there's a lot of turnovers by both teams in this game, then they could be extremely, extremely dangerous come March. So, yeah, that's really all I have for this game. Let's go to move on to the next game. And it was a jam-packed SEC Saturday, as I said. And it almost made you forget that you missed football, almost. It was a fun weekend of college hoops. The next game we're going to go over is Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Oklahoma gets it done, 86-70, and it was kind of just a game where Oklahoma pulled away at the end, and broke away. Oklahoma, great win. Great home win, great win to start the season. They've kind of been flying under the radar. They haven't really gotten too many, marquee wins, but that's not their fault. They did everything and more that you needed to do in an SEC opener. But look, I even with that being said, with everything that that Oklahoma did, I think the storyline still kind of falls on Ole Miss here. The things that Chris Beard did in year 1 and year 2 at Ole Miss were unprecedented, were crazy, and it's been quite a fall off this year. And I'm just really, really, really intrigued about what's going on at Ole Miss, what's going on in Oxford. They're 8-6, and just every power team they've played, they've lost, and they've maybe sometimes even gotten pummeled. They beat Memphis earlier in the year. That was a good win, but that's really it. And they've struggled continuously, and I'm not going to say it's over this year, but it's going to take a lot of turnaround for Ole Miss if they're going to even be competitive in the SEC this year. I mean, this is an Oklahoma team who, I think is pretty good, but they're going to be one of the easier teams you play in the conference. But I'm obviously not out on Chris Beard. He's been great at Ole Miss. But it's just a head scratcher every year, Obviously, they lost a lot of production. They lost dang it, I can't remember his name, but they were in the Sweet 16 last year, guys. I don't know if y'all remember that, if y'all know that. They were in the Sweet 16 last year. They were a elite team. They could hang with the likes of anybody. And this year, it just is a night and day difference. Malik Dia, you feel like that's a guy they need to get going a little more, but it just doesn't feel like they have all the pieces. And I don't know if it's like a spending issue or what. Chris Beard's usually been consistently pretty good wherever he's been. I don't think he's really ever been this bad. So it's interesting to see, and it's not the step back you want to see if you're an Ole Miss fan. But I'm going to say it, Chris Beard's a little lucky because, Ole Miss football is doing great. So, a little overshadows what's happening in Oxford for basketball. That being said, Oklahoma took care of business, and that's really all you can ask for. Move up to 11-3 on the season, and you just got to keep taking care of business. They take on Mississippi State coming up, and that'll be a good game. Two teams that need wins, need to stack up these wins, and like I said, The conference isn't quite as good last year, but it's still going to be quite a battle for those last couple tournament spots in the conference. So these games, especially earlier in the year, they're going to end up mattering a lot. And like Oklahoma, Mississippi State, that game could have a lot of implications at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, Ole Miss, I mean, Oklahoma, great game, great win, all you can ask for. Obviously, they didn't really do great in the non-conference, but like I said, or I don't know if I've said it, conference play, it's a new season. You're 0-0. You write your own destiny, and Oklahoma started off well at home, and almost did not. That's just about as simple as it gets. And with that, I think that's really all I have to say about that game. 86-70 was your final score. Oklahoma wins it at home. And let's go ahead and move on to LSU and Texas A&M. This was a fun game, and I said how Georgia and Auburn was a game of the year. This game was pretty close as well. Two teams that, once again, I feel like are going to be on the verge, on the bubble at the end of the year, if they make the tournament or not. Texas A&M comes up with the win, though, 75-72, and it's very pivotal, very, very pivotal in conference play that you win your home games that are winnable. And this was one of those for Texas A&M, and they won it. And LSU with a great battle. It was down the wire, back and forth. Absolutely amazing atmosphere, absolutely amazing game. But I just got to say, though, Texas A&M, the way they play, the way Bucky McMillan's got them going, that is some fun basketball to watch. If you're if you don't, but not a big college basketball fan and you try to get into it, I watch Texas A&M. That offense, the way they move, it's just, I don't know how to put it. It's so pure. It's really, really fun to watch. I really love Bucky ball. And not that this has to do with anything, but Buzz Williams is now 0-2 in Big Ten play. Bucky McMillan starts out his SEC career with a W against the Tigers. The Tigers, LSU, they've been decent this year at 12-2. They've won the games they're supposed to. And this one, it hurts a little bit, but I think what I saw from LSU today is that they can compete. Okay. I don't care how good A&M is. I think they're going to be pretty good, and I think LSU is going to be pretty good. I think they're LSU and Matt McMahon's going to take a step up from last year. But I think it's pivotal that Matt McMahon and LSU make the tournament this year. Today would have been a huge win on the road, probably a quad one at the end of the day, but you didn't get it done. But you got to rinse that and get wins. Like I said, getting wins at home especially are going to be pivotal, and just a great start to the Bucky McMillan era in SEC play for Texas A&M. And I assume they're going to keep it going. And they play Auburn coming up next on Tuesday, and that'll be another test. Auburn is going to need that win. Kind of does. It's not a must win, but they definitely want to win that game. So if Texas A&M could spoil that, they get that win, start off 2-0, and then you're looking pretty good for your tournament hopes. That being said, though, great game. No game in of today disappointed, really. I mean, I said Alabama and Kentucky, kind of. That game was a little lopsided, but other than that, every game was pretty fun to watch. Which brings us to the next game, maybe the funnest to watch. I said earlier, once again, Georgia and Auburn may have been the game of the year. Well, this one may have topped that in the same day. This was Mississippi State and Texas in Austin. Mississippi State gets the W in overtime, 101-98. It was an offensive battle. Josh Hubbard went insane mode, along with Epps, and just a dynamic duo. And at the beginning of the year for Mississippi State, it was looking rough. I mean, their record reflects it. It's not an impressive record, but the way they've been playing these last couple of weeks, the way they played today, if they can continue that, they can definitely find their way into the NCAA tournament. It's going to be a little bit more of a long shot for them. They're 9-5, but today was an absolutely elite performance by Mississippi State and by Texas too. That was a great game. That went back and forth. I feel for Tremont Mark. He missed the game time free throws at the end there, but he also was a major factor in the reason that they were in that game. And it was a fun game. It went back and forth. It didn't look like it was going to go to overtime, but it did. And then look, Josh Hubbard played great, as I said. And I really think it's underrated how good Josh Hubbard is. This is his third year at Mississippi State. He's absolutely carried them in every single year that he's been there. and I don't think that should be overlooked. Swain also for Texas had a fantastic game, posting up I think a career high 34 points, or at least a season high. Tremar Mark with 20 points as well, played great. And yeah, I mean, the story here is Josh Hubbard and Chris Jans' squad. Like I said, started off the year a little bit just a little bit underwhelming, but they seem to be getting it together now, and obviously they have a lot of work to do ahead of them, and it's going to take a lot of wins in SEC play. But getting a marquee game like this, a game where it's high scoring, could be anyone's game on the road, and you get that W, and let me tell you, it was a ruckus Texas atmosphere. That was a very good atmosphere for Texas in the Moody Center, and to get that win, that's huge to start off SEC play. And then you play Oklahoma next week, and it feels like a very winnable game. And then Kentucky. So 2 games in a row that feel very winnable. And if you can get those 2 under your belt, start 3-0 in SEC play, you're looking good. You're looking really, really good. So I'm very impressed from what I saw from Mississippi State today. And Texas, look, it was not the outcome you wanted, but I still see a path for them to make the tournament. I still see a lot of guys here. If you can get it going, if you can get them playing at a consistent basis, just mesh a little bit more. I trust Sean Miller. I think they can get this going. I think they can find a way in the tournament. Today is just one of those games where it's an absolute shootout back and forth, and whoever scores last wins. And that was Mississippi State and Josh Hubbard. And look, I tweeted it out after the game. Like, I don't think we don't appreciate Josh Hubbard enough. 38 points in 39 minutes. That is unheard of. That is insane. Josh Hubbard, and that's just like a normal night for Josh Hubbard. The guy is absolutely insane. And I think he would be like a lottery pick if he's just a little taller. But this guy deserves a chance in the NBA. I think he can be great. An insane talent, an insane scorer. Josh Hubbard is fun for Mississippi State and bails out Chris Jans a lot of the time. Just an absolutely fun game, and I like I said, game of the year candidate already. 2 game of the year candidates already. Georgia and Auburn, and then this. So look, Mississippi State, great start to SEC play. Texas, could be better, and that's really all I got to say for that game. I just want to reiterate, great atmosphere in Austin for Texas, especially Christmas break. I saw a lot of great atmospheres in the SEC today, and I really love that. I think we need to keep that going. Bud Walton Arena, Georgia, Alabama, it was rocking. A lot of these football schools, and it's just rocking for basketball. This is what we'd love to see. But that being said, moving on to the final game of the night. I didn't get to watch this one quite as much, but it looked like an absolute thriller at Missouri. Missouri gets the win against number 22 ranked Florida, 76-74. And it was a game that was absolutely down to the wire. I got to watch the end there. It was kind of turned into a free throw battle at the end, but Missouri ends up with the W. Mark Mitchell playing out of his mind, and along with Robinson. And Florida, it continues to be the Thomas Haug show, the Alex Condon show, the Big Man show, the Chinaloo show. I've said it a lot, and it's going to continue to be the story for Florida. You will go as far as your guards take you, because there is not a front court in the nation that is better than Florida's. There simply isn't. Thomas Haug, Alex Condon, and Chinaloo, those 3 guys are absolute beasts. And the fact that you are, as mediocre as you are right now is unacceptable. It's truly unacceptable. This is a team coming off a national title. Look, not all is lost for Florida by any means. I still think Florida, at the end of the day, will be a pretty good team. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again. They will go as far as their guards take them. That is Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee in specific. They posted up a whopping 17 points combined. Boogie Fland, 6. Xavier Lee, 11. And some of those were free throws, too. Look, Xavier Lee's been playing better. I've seen progression, but Boogie Fland especially, this guy from Arkansas, you're going to need more. You're going to need a lot more from them, too, if you're going to be an elite team, if you're going to get to the point that you want to get to. Not a great start to conference play for Florida, because this is a Missouri team that was struggling. and they're able to pull it out against you. And I mean, granted, it was at Missouri. That's the ruckus atmosphere, another one of those atmospheres in the SEC that's hard to win at. And Missouri needed this win, and they got it. And that's all credit to Missouri. They needed this win, they got it. This is a Missouri team that still can be dangerous and still can get that tournament bid. They're 11-3. They've posted up some pathetic performances in non-conference, but like I said, it's a new season, 0-0. This is their chance. They can rewrite it, and that's what they did today. Florida, though, 9-5, ranked 23, and you're just a couple points away from being, 15-0, whatever. That's just a type of season Florida's had. But I'll say this. Sometimes that, helps, having those losses like that, those tough losses. If you can figure out how to win those types of games like today and start getting going at the end of the year and lock up your tournament bid, that's going to do dividends. It's going to do dividends. So by no means is Florida out of this. By no means is Florida out of the SEC race to be even the champion of the SEC. Florida is still very dangerous. I trust Todd Golden a lot. It's going to be as far as the guards take them. Boogie Flynn, Xavier Lee. How good can they be? That will be what Florida is this year, simply. Well, everybody, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to Random SEC on YouTube. We would really appreciate it. And go ahead and follow us on X, on Instagram, and on TikTok. We are doing great on all three of those. Facebook as well, as if you have it, if you use it. I've been posting a lot of great things on X recently. I started posting content on there, so it would be very appreciated if you would go ahead and tap into that. So thank you so much for watching. SEC basketball is legit, and look, it's fun. See you next time.